The definition is dramatically altered by time as well. Now in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and I confess I was alive in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and living what was then called the American Dream. 50s, 60s, and 70s. You could have a one-earner family, as we did, with a spouse at home raising 5 kids, in a Cape Cod house that you built, in a safe neighborhood in Queens, with good public schools and convenient emergency rooms that were free, 2 of them, with a new car every 2 years for, hold your breath, $30,000 a year income. More than that, in those years, for sure, you could expect to earn more than your father did, because the labor unions and that economy saw to that. There was a constant escalation upward of the middle class. The mobility was upward. Given all the variances then in the definitions of middle class, I've decided to stay with my own over the years and have used it always consistently. And it's closer to Aristotle's than anybody else's. And here it is, no surprise. The middle class is made up of people who aren't rich enough to be virtually free of economic concern, nor poor enough to warrant any subsistence payments from the government or even from charity. They're people who work for a living because they have to, not because some psychiatrist told them this is a good way to fill the grim interval between birth and eternity. Unless they eternity, feel lucky. They work because they have to. Now, some of them are 2-parent families, 1-parent families, some single, police officers, firefighters, nurses, emergency responders, the list goes on and on. Teachers, secretaries, bus drivers, taxi and limousine drivers, clerks. And without these middle-class New Yorkers, it's obvious that we could not have built, operated, or survived comfortably in what is now the greatest city in world history. And if these New Yorkers are not adequately paid and otherwise reasonably accommodated, the quality of our city's life is sure to decline. A number of middle-class firefighters, police officers, sanitation workers are forced to live outside the city because they can't buy a house or pay the rent and afford tuition to a private school in an area where they think the public school isn't good enough. A lot of them who love this city and love their jobs are finding that they have to get rooted in the suburbs instead because they just can't make it. We're having difficulty already finding teachers with proficiency needed to teach the skills that our high-powered economy demands at the kind of salaries that our city supposedly can afford. That's a problem. And for how long, and this is almost incredible, for how long will we be able to ask our young men and women to risk their lives for us as police officers for a meager starting salary of $25,000 a year before taxes? How do you explain that to anybody? And why would they take the job? Well, either out of desperation or out of a love that's almost inexplicable for serving people even at risk of your own life. And so now when you're looking for money, you can say to them, hey, look, take it from the $1 trillion in tax cuts that you're giving over the next decade, a very big percentage of which is going to the wealthy. Take it back. Take it back. Your deficit is very large. Reduce the deficit a little bit. Take it back. The middle class needs it. They need it for health care. They need it for education. Give them another tax cut. A real one. They can use it. Take it back. We've got 13 million poor children. That's more than we've ever had. 13 million who are at risk of abuse, risk of illiteracy, at risk of poverty. And you say, my God, how can this be with our wealth? How can it be with all that we have available to us? How can you give $1 trillion away? How can you spend $390 billion on a war in Iraq that the country is pleading you to get out of? How can you do it? How can you do it in the face of Chuck Schumer telling you that if you just added more auditors to the IRS, you could get $150 billion? Read his new book. $150 billion. Now you can say, Chuck, well, the footprints in your chest on the way to the camera, maybe that's true. But as long as he's telling us that kind of truth, keep running, Chuck. Just run over them. Say all you can. Hey, Edwards, $15 billion available in capital gains taxes that have not been reported to IRS. I'm not making these numbers up. They're all real numbers. McCain, billions and billions of dollars in corporate welfare. That's McCain, the Republican. A lot of Republicans are saying it. There are billions of dollars there. How dare you say we don't have the money? Now, you know what it is? It's starving the beast. Have you heard of starving the beast? This whole thing is cynical. It's deliberate. It's real. It's not inadvertent. It's not that they fouled up on the way there. They got mired in the complexities and lost their balance and made an error. They did it deliberately. Read David Stockman's book. He just got indicted. I don't wish he would, but it is convenient to be able to say to you that he wrote a book that admitted the idea of supply side was a fraud. And Robert Darman, Richard Darman, who was in the Bush administration, who was in the Reagan and the Bush administration, wrote a book, said it. That's exactly right. We knew it was a phony. But what were you doing? We were cutting money for Baruch, the child, homeless people, all the discretionary money. All for research, for science, now for stem cells. Cut that money. Cut that money. Why? Because that'll starve the beast. What beast? The beast of discretionary payments that we have to give to all these municipalities to help those people who should be working harder for themselves, those bums who got themselves poor because they refused to work hard, they refused to get themselves educated. The hell with money for education. The hell with money for Child Health Plus, which started with my administration. The hell with all those things. Let's save that money so we can give tax cuts to the wealthy who are the investors and our people too. You have two people who are virtual candidates for the mayor, and another one, Chris Quinn, who's participating in all this work. She's not here. So that's three possible candidates for the mayor in this group that BMI and the group put together. That's wonderful. It's conceivable you will have three candidates for the presidency for the first time in history. Rudy, Hillary, maybe Mike Bloomberg. With all of that power at your command, you should be able to do something about at least getting these issues discussed. That's how I feel about it. And to not abuse, but give you a turn on a popular old wisdom. If not now, when? And if not you, then who? Thank you and God bless.